Today we expose what is without exaggeration the largest single retreat of private landlords from the British rental market in living memory. Across 12 specific UK towns and cities, landlords aren't just complaining about regulation. They are selling up at a pace that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. In some London boroughs, half of every home now listed for sale was previously a rental property. Nationally, around 700 former rental homes are being put up for sale every single day. And by the end of this year, an estimated 220,000 households, roughly 5% of the entire private rented sector, could leave the market entirely. This isn't a slowdown. This is a structural collapse. And the towns at the center of it are the same towns where renters are already paying the most, meaning the people who can least afford it are about to be hit hardest. The trigger, the Renters' Rights Act, which came into force on May 1, 2026, abolishing Section 21 evictions, capping rent rises, and exposing landlords to fines of up to £40,000 for a single procedural slip. Specialist buy-to-let lender Pepper Money confirms that more than 65,000 of the projected landlord exits are the direct result of the Renters' Rights Act alone. And Savills' April 2026 data is unambiguous. 254,000 previously rented homes were listed for sale in the 12 months to March, a 28% increase compared to 2024. So, we've identified the 12 specific UK towns and cities where this exodus is most concentrated, where renters should be most worried, and where the supply collapse is going to push rents up hardest in 2026 and 2027. But before we get into it, if you rent in any of these areas, if your landlord has just started behaving strangely, or if you're a small landlord trying to figure out your own next move, hit that subscribe button right now. British front media and the lobbying groups don't want you to see this exposed clearly. The big property portals make money when transactions happen. They have no incentive to tell you what's really going on. We have you. Every subscriber, every share, every comment forces this story higher up the algorithm. So subscribe, drop a comment with your town. Let's expose what's really happening. Number 12, Aberdeen. Let's start in Scotland. Aberdeen has a unique problem. Landlords are exiting because the underlying property market has been broken for over a decade. With house prices falling 6.4% in just the last year and now sitting at the same level they were in 2007, Aberdeen landlords are now realizing losses just to escape the regulatory pressure. The northeast of Scotland has the highest proportion of landlords intending to sell, around 1 in 5. They're not trading up, they're getting out. Number 11, Brighton and Hove. A buy-to-let darling for 2 decades, Brighton offered landlords yields up to 8.19% on student-focused properties. Now, Brighton landlords are facing a triple hit, falling property values down 3.2% year-on-year, the same Renters' Rights Act compliance burden as everywhere else, and the University of Brighton closing its Eastbourne campus, crushing the surrounding student rental ecosystem. Brighton landlords are listing properties for sale at the highest rate in the city's history. Number 10, Loughborough. A small town with a huge student population. Loughborough landlords have historically banked on yields of around 8.67% in the LE11 postcode. But the Renters' Rights Act treats student lets the same as professional lets, meaning the same 12-month notice rules, the same rent challenge tribunals, the same compliance demands. Small landlords with a single Loughborough HMO are doing the maths and walking away. The properties listed for sale in Loughborough's student belt right now are heavily former rentals. Number 9, Plymouth. PL4 was the highest yielding student postcode in the UK at 9.78%. It now sits in a region where Zoopla data shows Plymouth sellers seeing average sell times stretch past 48 days, often requiring asking price cuts of 12% or more. The combination of high yields evaporating under tax pressure and weak underlying property prices is creating a forced sale environment that didn't exist 12 months ago. Number 8, Hull. HU5 used to deliver consistent 9.01% yields on affordable student stock. But Hull is in the northeast, the region with the highest proportion of landlords planning to sell, around 1 in 5. What looks like an affordable yield to a buyer is now a compliance nightmare to existing owners. EPC upgrades alone on Hull's older terrace stock can run into 5 figures per property, money small landlords no longer have. Number 7, Coventry. Coventry has some of the highest student rental void rates in the country, with empty rooms multiplying as students increasingly choose to live at home rather than rent. Combine that with new compliance burdens, and Coventry landlords have started exiting in numbers. The HMO market saw insurance policy growth of 13% nationally in 2025. But in Coventry, the trend has reversed sharply. Landlords are giving up HMO licenses entirely. Number 6, Nottingham. Nottingham was a buy-to-let powerhouse with NG7 yielding 8.45% and HMO insurance growth running at 8% in 2025. Now Nottingham faces dual pressure. The University of Nottingham is closing its Kings Meadow and Castle Meadow campuses, shrinking student demand, while small landlords are being squeezed by the same Renters' Rights Act rules as everywhere else. The result, a wave of NG postcode rental properties hitting the sales market in Q1 and Q2 2026. Number 5, Bristol. Bristol is one of the high-cost regions where landlord exits are projected to be most acute alongside London and the east of England. Bristol University and UWE have provided rental demand for decades. But Bristol landlords now face a perfect storm: high purchase prices that crush yields, EPC requirements affecting Victorian housing stock, and the indefinite mothballing of major new student accommodation projects like Bristol Freestone Island, hinting at falling future demand. Landlords are getting out before everyone else does. Number 4, Manchester. Manchester is the case that proves how universal this exodus is. The city had the highest landlord insurance policy growth in the UK at 8.6% in 2025, suggesting massive new investment. But underneath that headline number, small private landlords are exiting fast. Manchester is being identified by industry data as one of the high-demand areas where the supply of rental homes is expected to shrink most aggressively. What's happening is a takeover. Corporate landlords are buying up the properties small landlords are dumping, and tenants are being squeezed in the transition. Manchester rents are forecast to keep climbing throughout 2026. Number 3, Edinburgh. Edinburgh has been one of the fastest-growing HMO markets in Britain, with insurance policies up 14% between 2024 and 2025. But Edinburgh now faces the same Scotland-specific issues that have already hammered Aberdeen, plus the impact of the new wide regulations. Edinburgh student yields hover around just 5.24%, meaning landlords have very little margin to absorb new compliance costs. Existing Edinburgh landlords are increasingly choosing to sell into a hot owner-occupier market rather than ride out the regulatory storm. Number 2, Inner London. Collectively, Inner London is the epicenter of the entire landlord exodus. Recent surveys by Property Industry Eye show 39% of London landlords are considering leaving the market entirely within the next year, with letting agents reporting that 70% of their landlord clients are either selling properties or seriously contemplating it. Savills data confirms that in London, former rental properties accounted for 30% of all new sale instructions compared to just 13% across the rest of Britain. Earlier 2025 figures showed half of all homes listed for sale in London were previously rented properties. And of the London rentals that were sold, only 11% returned to the lettings market, meaning 89% are gone from the rental supply forever. This is a £48 billion exodus from the private rental sector, and it's transforming London's housing stock from rental to owner-occupied or short-term let on a scale not seen since the post-war housing crisis. Number 1, City of London and Kensington and Chelsea. Prime central London is the worst hit zone in the entire United Kingdom. These boroughs have seen house prices crash by 11% to 12% in just 1 year. With house values collapsing, the non-dom tax exodus accelerating, and the Iran war frightening off Middle Eastern capital, prime central London landlords are facing the worst possible combination: falling capital values, regulatory burden, falling rents, and shrinking buyer demand. Westminster rents fell 4.7% in the year to March 2026, the steepest fall in any London borough. So landlords here aren't just selling, they're dumping. They're accepting massive discounts just to exit before values fall further. and the smart money is following them. Landlords who haven't yet sold are pivoting to short-term lets, which can generate 30% to 80% more income than equivalent long-term tenancies, removing those properties from the long-term rental market entirely. Why this is happening, and why it won't stop. The drivers are structural and cumulative. The phasing out of mortgage interest relief from 2017. The 5% stamp duty surcharge on second properties since October 2024. EPC requirements coming in 2030 affecting around 60% of London's rental stock. The decent homes standard arriving for the private rented sector. Court possession delays now averaging 33.8 weeks from claim to order, meaning landlords can lose 6 to 9 months of rent removing a non-paying tenant. And finally, the Renters' Rights Act, which has been the tipping point. Industry analysis confirms that almost 2 in 5 landlords surveyed in early 2026 said the Renters' Rights Act would either force them out of the market or significantly accelerate their plans to sell. Around 93,000 landlords exited in 2025, with another 110,000 forecast for 2026. What this means for tenants? If you rent in any of these 12 cities, you are about to face the most aggressive rental supply squeeze of the last 30 years. Hampton's data shows the supply of homes to let has shrunk by an average of 25.4% since 2016, while the average rent has soared by 44.1%. That trend is now accelerating, not slowing. Bidding wars on rental properties are likely to return illegally despite the new ban. Landlords leaving the sector aren't being replaced. Only 4% of landlords are actively investing in new properties right now versus the much larger group exiting. 3 things to do this month. First, if your current tenancy is rolling, don't move unless you have to. Moving means re-entering the market at higher prices. Second, if you must move, get every offer in writing and document everything. The Renters' Rights Act protects you only if you can prove the breach. Third, look outside the 12 cities listed today. The north outside major centers is showing relative rental stability. Places like Burnley, Blackburn, and Rochdale, where small landlords are exiting more slowly because the regulatory burden is identical, but the rents and stamp duty bills are far lower. If this video changed how you see the British rental market, hit that subscribe button one more time. Drop a comment telling us your town and what your landlord is doing right now. And subscribe to British Front Media because we're doing this every single week. New investigation, new expose, new truth the property industry doesn't want you to hear. Until next time, read the data, question the headlines, and protect your future.